The thoughts, opinions, and general overall shades thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour. From cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck and Rico Lamite, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. That's right. It is Wednesday, March 13th, and today is National Dermatologist Day. It's also National Jewel Day, National Canine Veterans Day, National Coconut Tort Day, National Good Samaritan Day, and last but not least, it is also National Open an Umbrella Indoors today. I don't know why they're trying to promote everybody getting such bad luck, but nonetheless, thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. There's also high noon on the East Coast, and please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look down below on your screen to see exactly where we live on the internet, and we are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and on our very own website at www.highat9news.com. But kicking it off today, that's right, we have the dope dad himself, Mr. Rico Lamite, who is rocking the orange hat today that he tries to pawn off as being red. That's right. It must be because Joe Biden won the Democratic nomination that you're wearing that nice orange hat today. But nonetheless, it is the dope dad himself, Mr. Rico Lamite.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Jason. This hat is very, very, very red.
Let you tell it.
5 millionth time, but
I bet.
if if you got color blindness, it's okay.
I'm not
Get
colorblind.
help for that.
Yeah, you're cute.
You can get help.
Cute. Cute. Very cute.
But you know what? BIPOC communities have a strong track record of economically thriving. Look at Greenwood in Oklahoma. Anybody who's seen the, Killers Under the Flower Moon, the whole thing went down right there, and it all gets messed up when they start to win, and white men come in and just try to take out everything and fuck up what happened.
Oh boy, here we go.
And, that's exactly what's going on in North Carolina right now, because Native American tribe is accusing North Carolina's 2 Republican U.S. senators of launching what they claim to be an inflammatory frontal attack on their tribal sovereignty after the politicians contacted they got their Karen on, yes they did, contacted federal and state law enforcement about natives' impending marijuana store. So the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, or ECBI, they're planning to open the Great Smoky Cannabis Company and on April 20th, 420, on the Qualla boundary, 57-acre tract of land west of Asheville. And you know what? Free of big tobacco's lobbying influence, good old boys networks gumming up the system, and pretty much every other hurdle thrown ahead of of them by white leaders. They're just trying to get theirs in mainstream America, right? And following the rules and going forward with everything on their own terms. And they got legalized medical cannabis back in 2021. Things went well. Last year, they approved of adult use. They're set to go forward with everything in place this 420. But the tribe said in October it was on track to issue medical patient cards, an accessible benefit to all North Carolinians. Um, but you know what? Is when these fellows stepped in. According to Greenville, South Carolina TV station WHNS, the impending ECBI marijuana stores opening prompted U.S. Senators Tom Tillis and Ted Budd to send a letter to Attorney General Merrick Garland, the DEA chief, Ann Milgram, as well as state and local law enforcement officials. The Republicans' letter asks pointed questions about the legality of the situation and how in the excuse me about the whole legality when this is 100% illegal in North Carolina. All right, so here's what Tillis and Budd wrote. As our nation is facing an unprecedented drug crisis that is harming our communities, it is absolutely vital to learn what measures your departments and agencies are taking to uphold current federal and state laws. This matter raises multiple questions on how North Carolina communities will be kept safe. It's not clear whether authorities responded to the senators, but the tribe, they hit back. Here's what they said. This letter was replete with misinformation and inflammatory language that promote fear and misunderstanding. Tribal spokesman Shayashe Little Dove said in a statement to Spectrum News 1. It's a shame that Senator Tillis and Senator Budd did not respectfully communicate their concerns directly to Eastern Band Cherokee leaders. Instead, they went to go talk to our managers. Instead, choosing a full frontal attack on Cherokee sovereignty. North Carolina is one of the dwindling handful of states where neither medical nor adult use marijuana is legal. Though some Native American tribes have proceeded with legal cannabis industries on their reservations, the Qualla boundary is not a reservation. It's privately owned by the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, built but held in trust by the federal government. So, among the questions asked by the senators, here's the top three. What are federal authorities doing to enforce federal marijuana law around the Qualla boundary? Number two, will the local district attorneys and sheriff enforce North Carolina's marijuana statutes? Can Indian gaming revenues be invested into cannabis? And the final one here, are the authorities concerned that EBCI's cannabis enterprise will attract transnational criminal organizations? So shit hasn't even popped off, and these guys are saying that they're already spreading a bunch of bullshit and just suppressing people's access to medicine within their own sovereign state. So I'll just leave it at that, man. Y'all know how this story ends every single time people of color start to thrive or start to do their own thing outside of the system. Um, just can't go forward. Why? Because of the hatred and because of just straight up jealousy, I guess. I don't know. I'm not a white man. I'm not a white man in government. I don't know what's going through these people's minds. We just want to go forward. We want to thrive just like y'all. So what's the holdup, Jason? These are your homeboys. I'm Rico Lamite, dopest dad on the street. And I don't understand Republican lawmakers just trying to hate on people of color doing right for the community. What's going on here, Jason? Tom Tillis, that's your boy.
You have this so framed in such a skewed way, Rico. But
Okay, how so? How so? How's it skewed?
well,
I'm
first
going
of all,
by historical
cannabis
fact.
is
What
cannabis
that?
is illegal, okay, in North Carolina, okay, and so the senators are both 100% right about that. Now,
Not on their sovereign land.
oh, hold on.
Yeah,
Slow
natives
down.
have
Slow down.
sovereign land.
Slow down. I'm getting there, you guys. You guys are trying to, you know what I'm saying? Get all
Trying to
hyphy
filibuster.
before you
Trying to
even allow me to
filibuster.
finish my comments. Okay.
A
Now,
filibuster, another one of your favorite things to do. Let's
oh,
go.
oh God, here we go. Native Americans, okay, they do have sovereignty and they have the right to do what they want to do on their own land. But now, when it comes to the state of North Carolina, the state of North Carolina has that same right also. So, therefore, the tribes can easily make it so that people can access cannabis on their tribe, on their tribal grounds and whatnot, and be able to purchase it and be able to do all of those things. But once those people travel off of that reservation and travel back onto to land that is known as North Carolina, they are subject to arrest, seizure, and everything else that goes along with all of that.
That's true, but how is that any different from them living next to a state on the border of a state that has adult use and crossing the border? For example, if
I
I
agree
live
with
in
you.
El Paso, Texas, and I go into New Mexico, does that mean that Ken Paxton now has the right to appeal to the federal government to try and
He
overturn
does.
New Mexico's adult use law?
No, he
That's
does. He
crazy.
doesn't
You're
have the
not-
right. No, he doesn't have the right to
So how is that
overturn.
different?
Oh, he doesn't have the right to overturn the law, but he does have the right to enforce criminal penalties within his border.
He can. So I don't think anybody's arguing against the fact that North Carolina's government and law enforcement is allowed to enforce their laws against people leaving the reservation. But that's not what they're doing here. They're trying to stop the sale of cannabis on sovereign land. Is that not accurate?
That is 100% accurate.
Yeah, they don't have the jurisdiction to be able to do that. They're just puffing hot air. If
Well,
that's
they
the
just
case.
shut the fuck up and mind their own damn business.
Well, I mean, they gotta release their statement, bro. They gotta speak to their constituent
they gotta
base.
do shit.
They gotta get all their right wing bros and
They gotta-
Trumpers
they
all
gotta-
hyped up on some
And
bullshit.
it's not the
is what
right
they're
wing
doing.
bros and the Trumpers. Stop the cap, bro.
This is some
That's
Karen
mostly
Chad
that's mostly
bullshit
some
saying
rhino
right.
Republicanness. You know what I mean?
So they're trying to
Republican in name
gentrify more
only.
shit. They're trying to gentrify some more shit. Oh, we want some
I'm
jurisdiction.
not buying
in here.
none of that bullshit, bro.
Save the children bullshit. Mind your own damn business and stay over there. How about that, Tom Tillis?
Mm-hmm.
Modern. This is the modern Indian campaigns of the Wild West. They're just using corporations and dollars now. That's the difference.
I'd say the one silver lining is they're not just committing massacres, at least, and they're doing it
Right.
through.
Not yet.
Well, they're
Not
just
yet.
committing
Yeah, yeah,
economic
yeah.
massacre.
Because that's
Economic
not happening.
massacre is just the same.
Oh boy. Oh,
Was that Mandy?
You guys.
I'd be willing to bet that it's illegal to gamble in North Carolina too.
Yeah,
They
they
allow
don't
them to
take
do-
the winnings when they get off the res.
Well, but
Yeah, I also like how they're trying to tell the
Yeah.
tribe how to invest their gaming revenue into cannabis. Like, how is that your fucking business at all?
Yeah, mind
well,
yours.
and
Right.
how are they going to? Were they going to set up at the exit road from the reservation?
I think
have
they
the
would.
dog
I mean,
race car?
I'll put it to you like this: if I was a police, if I was the chief of police, and that's what I wanted to do, or if I had a a hair up my ass for certain types of what what I'm saying, individuals, that's the perfect place to do it. It's just like the same way when people used to sit, when cops would sit inside the parking
Hold on.
lots at where bars are and wait for people to
Hold
walk out
on,
of the
Jay.
bar and hop
Hold
in their
on,
car.
Hold on, time out. What else would you do if you were a police?
Oh God, here we go.
Yeah.
Here we
If
go.
you make
That's
you make a
cute.
fantastic police officer in the South.
Yeah.
How about that? You make a fantastic North Carolinian police officer, Jason.
I would be a super trooper, Rico.
Super true.
Thank
Yeah.
God for the Constitution, right?
Yeah.
Where we have a right to privacy from searches and seizures just because some cop has a hair up his ass.
Yeah,
We
but
got Jason
remember,
Farva.
Dale, North Carolina, it's still illegal to smell like cannabis, so they can still search your car just for the smell.
Oh, they just opened their store, right? I just saw something recently. Didn't they open their first store?
Well, that's what we're referencing right now, but it's on an Indian reservation. It's not legal in North
No,
Carolina.
didn't North Carolina opened a medical spot too, I think recently, or was possibly
Yeah, I believe
going
so.
to
Yeah, I
soon,
believe
right?
so. Yeah.
No, that's what we're talking
But
about.
also,
It's a tribal-
isn't
it's a
Delta-8
tribal
and
land.
THC legal in North Carolina? So
I think
Yeah, but
I think
it's
they're
not.
no, because wasn't that lady that got arrested for a THCA that we all watched on Instagram? Wasn't that in North Carolina?
Yeah,
I
but
don't know.
THCA is a scam.
We all
Some
know
of the
that, Dale.
I get confused with some of the Carolinas.
Well, there's
and
only
stuff, so,
two of them. There's a northern one and a southern one.
Yeah, but they blend
yeah,
into
yeah.
some other ones too. They blend into some Virginias and some West Virginias
They're
and some
not
other
even
things.
close to
You know what I'm saying?
Virginia, bro. There's a whole bunch of states in between there.
Yeah, I'm
No,
glad you talked
no,
about
they're
how
not.
confused you were. Yeah, how confused you were there on that, Luke, because I just did a Google search for North Carolina cannabis, and the third hit there says North Carolina voters are strongly confused with North Carolina's marijuana laws. They put both users and police in a haze on what's legal and what's not.
Yeah,
So,
it's California in 1996 again.
yes.
Yep. Well,
So, I mean, just mind your own damn business. How about that? Mind your
Yeah.
own damn business, and
but
just
the
go over
children?
there. If stuff happens, make sure you address that when it happens. But it hasn't happened, and you're just drumming up a bunch of bullshit, a bunch of fear mongering, because that's what these people do. Best.
Yeah, Dr. Mark Chaldon says North Carolina is the heart of Delta-8 country. And on that, we're going to go to a commercial. We're going to be right back.
Oh man, that was weird. Hey, you America. Do I look like Sean Connery? Good morning, America. Saman Razani coming to you live from sunny Los Angeles, California with the one and only highest host, Mr. Jason Beck, smoking on the best weed in the world. Did you know that we have an audio-only version of our podcast? You can find it on Apple, Google, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. No excuses in 2024. If you haven't checked us out, check it out now. And also, check out what the Prophet's doing in 2024.
We can't tell.
Oh, man, and we're back, you guys. That's right. Rico.
All right, y'all. He's known for smoking the best weed in the world, being the highest Republican in every room, and he's checking out applications on Indeed this morning, seeing if there's any deputy positions opening up in North Carolina. Coming to the stage, Jason Beck.
Just for the record, Rico, I wouldn't start off as a deputy. I'd start off as a captain, just so you know.
You got a cape on?
Illusions of grandeur.
He's perfectly fit to be a cop.
Yep. Now I'm physically fit now, you guys. Watch out.
Jason, you better keep your cape on tight tonight.
I bet. You know what I mean?
You can pull back to that motherfucker.
That's right. Keep all that kryptonite away from you guys. Oh, man, you guys. Your guys' favorite president, or at least some of your guys' favorite president. Joe Biden, he's at it again because, again, he is proposing blocking marijuana sales in the D.C. budget, despite promoting pardons and a scheduling review, you guys. That's right. Just days after promoting marijuana reform actions during his State of the Union address, President Joe Biden has released a budget plan that proposes to maintain a controversial provision prohibiting Washington, D.C. from using its local tax dollars to legalize cannabis sales. The fiscal year 2025 budget request sent to Congress on Monday also contains some good news for marijuana reform supporters. However, it once again proposes to keep in place a long-standing rider preventing the Justice Department from using its funds to interfere in the implementation of state-level medical cannabis programs. The D.C. language is the latest disappointment for advocates, marking the fourth year in a row that the president has included the rider from Representative Andy Harris, Republican from Maryland, that undermines the district's autonomy on cannabis. This year will also mark the 10-year anniversary of D.C. voters approving legalization at the ballot, and only to have Congress prevent the local government from implementing a regulated market, you guys. D.C. lawmakers have enacted certain workarounds, including allowing people to self-certify as medical marijuana patients, and there's a growing bipartisan interest in removing the congressional rider. But the decade-long blockade has been a consistent source of frustration. Both the House and Senate had omitted the marijuana rider in their respective versions of appropriations legislation back in 2022 before it was ultimately retained following bicameral and bipartisan negotiations. Congressional leaders haven't released an agreed-upon 2024 spending bill for financial services and the general government, the FSGG, that covers the D.C. issue yet. However, the president did sign an appropriations package last week that includes the selection protecting state medical cannabis programs, as well as language on studying state marijuana regulatory frameworks in preparation for eventual federal legalization. The president's now budget released on Monday also proposes to keep riders intact to safeguard the legal hemp industry from federal intervention and to restrict funding for the promotion of legalizing Schedule I drugs. It further seeks to change the name of the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, SAMHSUA, and other drug agencies by replacing the word abuse with use in order to reduce the historic stigma. Samsha said, you guys, oh man, if that don't sound like some wokeness to me. But with respect to cannabis policy provisions, the budget has not meaningfully changed compared to last year. Some advocates held out hope that Biden would seek to remove the D.C. rider, given how he promoted his marijuana pardon proclamations and scheduling review directive, including historically during his State of the Union address last week. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services has recommended that the Drug Enforcement Administration move cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 of the Controlled Substances Act, but it's unclear when the law enforcement agency will act on that. A recent survey found the president's favorability spiked after people were made aware of the possibility that marijuana could be rescheduled under the Biden-initiated review. And with that, it seems maintaining the D.C. rider represents a potentially missed opportunity to continue leveraging the pro-reform attitude of most voters ahead of the November election. On scheduling review, some DEA officials reportedly restricting calls to reschedule marijuana, creating tension within the White House, the story that we covered here on High at 9 News yesterday. And meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris' office has been reaching out to people who've received marijuana possession pardons and a couple other people that we will cover in a story later on this morning. But that's pretty much it. Man, oh man, oh man. These guys are such a joke, and they just want to change words for words, and they all have the same turd meaning. But nonetheless, this is Jason Beck for the High at 9 News. What do y'all have to say about this bullshit?
Is this surprising, though? Like, I think we all know that the man that was the main person behind the 1994 crime bill, marijuana was not his issue that he was going to stand on. That was never going to be it. That's why their pardons were pardoning at a federal level people that have been prosecuted for minor possession, which is a very small number of people. Mm-hmm. My question for you, Jason, though, is what did Biden's predecessor do? Did he even attempt to make any progress on allowing cannabis to go?
He legalized cannabis.
In these.
Oh, fuck. Really?
Yeah, he 100% legalized cannabis. The Farm Bill legalized cannabis, THCA for the win. That's 100% cannabis is all legal.
No,
it's all
I'm
THCA.
saying in D.C.
Hey,
we're coming up on 10 years of when D.C. approved voter-backed legislation to legalize cannabis. Yes, that happened under President Obama, but Trump had 4 years to approve a budget that would have allowed for licensing and sale of cannabis in D.C., and he didn't do that either.
I never expected Trump to do any of that. That was never an expectation of mine at all whatsoever. But Trump
and
did,
like that,
Trump
he was
did legalize.
Never an expectation
Trump legalized all cannabis under the Farm Bill.
Oh, he did not.
Yeah, he did.
First of all, that is hilarious. It's actually not. It's so lame that you just said that.
I don't care.
And the Farm Bill is literally the reason why all of this is going on.
Cannabis sativa L is the definition of marijuana in the Controlled Substances Act, and cannabis sativa L is also the definition of hemp in the Farm Bill. So therefore, it is all the same thing. The only thing different from it is this antiquated 0.3 THC bullshit that they want to try to perpetuate. But other than that, we legal.
Didn't you and I
tell
go to
Ishmael
prison?
Tell Ishmael Lira that it was legalized. Tell Parker Coleman that it was legalized, and tell everybody else.
I'm happy to speak with their legal teams in regards to these different types of arguments and help them craft meaningful.
Legalized.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, Jason, that's horse shit. You know it. I remember smoking hemp. My buddy brought back from Kansas is like, that ain't weed. The fuck are you trying to sell me here? He didn't legalize cannabis as most people and look at it, which you smoke it and you get high.
It's unintended consequences, Dale.
Intended. Thank you. What does that word mean? Intention. What does that mean, Jason? Intention. You said unintended consequence. So you can't say that in the same. You can't say that in the same breath and say that Trump intentionally legalized cannabis.
I didn't say
whoever did that was the lawyer.
You didn't ask what he intentionally did. I said that he did it with the Farm Bill, which he did.
I don't think that he did.
Well, you guys can be wrong all you want. That's totally your opinion. You're right to do that.
Now, hold on. Let's come back to reality, and I will give you some facts here. What President Trump did do is that he did sign into law the First Step Act, which was the first prison reform bill to ever hit the law books. Now, that was a bipartisan situation. That wasn't Trump just doing that. That had been a bill that with Cut 50 and Cory Booker and a lot of Democrats and a lot of people had contributed to what ultimately ended up being the legislation that was called the First Step Act that was signed. Mm-hmm. Trump did do some arm twisting on that, with Mitch McConnell when he wouldn't bring it up to a vote, and he was able to get it to a vote. The First Step Act did release many people under the modification of the compassionate release statute. However, Trump did not do anything to legalize cannabis. The Farm Bill was crafted by some very crafty legislators. Hats off to them. I will hire you on my company if I ever have the ability to, I promise. And not only that, now let me jump to, because I'm going to play both sides. I'm going to jump on both sides of the backyard here. On the other side of the backyard, Biden, you aren't doing anything. You're claiming to do marijuana pardons. You're claiming to have impact on cannabis policy. You're even claiming to do that you've done expungements. All of this is false. None of that has happened either. So what we need to do is bring both sides of the aisle back down to reality and say, hey, look, we need to, number one, get people out of prison. I don't care about the rest of the stuff. I don't care about THCA after that. I don't care about all the regulations and the farm bills in North Carolina and everything else that you guys want to figure out after that. We can let the people out of prison. Then we can figure out the rest of the bills that you guys want to fight over of who wants to be the states' rights and who wants to regulate this and what wants to be able to be shipped and all that other BS.
I'm with you on that they need to release people from prison. I'm totally all about that. The problem with that is much more difficult to do than to just all of a sudden make happen, and that's because most people that are locked up for cannabis.
No, it's not difficult. Jay,
it is. No, it is. It is
Joe
difficult.
Biden right now. Joe Biden with the stroke of a pen. See, there's precedent for this because President Jimmy Carter did it with all of the people who dodged the draft back during the 70s and the Vietnam era. There's a blanket clemency that can be done. He can let everyone out of prison. He can pardon everyone who has a nonviolent cannabis conviction. That doesn't have to wait on anything. The stroke of the pen, executive action can make that happen.
Most people, though, Luke, that are in for cannabis are in for conspiracy.
Yeah, but it's a cannabis charge.
I understand that.
So a conspiracy is a 841, right? It's statute 841. But to complete the conspiracy, you have to insert a substance into the conspiracy. It has to be conspiracy to distribute blank. So you have to put the word cannabis in there. So it's a cannabis charge still, whether or not, it's a distribution charge, right? It's a conspiracy charge. All those charges are different. And then you just insert the substance. You can have a charge for distribution of cannabis. You can also have a charge for distribution of cocaine, but those are different charges, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the problem is in a lot of people's records, how they are kept in the justice system. It makes it very difficult for them to be able to identify a lot of these people. Now, there's a lot of organizations that have gone and done a lot of work to help identify these things, but the problem is that they get side blocked by like the Board of Prisons and a bunch of other different of these groups all the time. And Luke, you know about this better than anybody.
But that's what I'm saying I know about this, so I know that there are ways to do it. So again, if you're saying that you're not doing it only because it would be difficult to figure out how to do it, that's a BS fucking response. Excuse me, that's a BS response right there.
That's not. You're misinterpreting my words. What I'm saying is that is difficult to do it. That's just a reality. Now, not saying that there isn't ways to do that. That is true as well. That there are ways to do that. But
I will end on this. On this comment. Sometimes doing what's right is difficult.
That's fair.
Some political stones to do it. No politician seems to have it right now.
Mm-hmm. I heard that. Any comments on this, Mandy? You're on mute, I think. You're on mute. Oh, she's... All right, well, keeping this train rolling, we're going to roll right into Mr. Attorney Dale Schaefer. He's the founder of Armada Law Practice and at one point in time did some time for a cannabis crime. Coming up, as a felon, but didn't do no telling. That's right, it is none other than attorney Mr. Dale Schaefer.
Good morning, everybody. Yep, I rode my beat, kept my mouth shut, and I'm out trying to speak on the people that are still in prison for bullshit. So, okay, today's story comes out Monday, and it involves a gamer, I don't know what, Instagrammer or whatever the fuck, and Bilzerian, I think is his name. He's a badass poker player, the bad dude playboy. Had a couple of companies. One's called Ignite Spirits and others Ignite Brands. And he sells alcohol and, vape products and CBD products. And he was approached by a company. I got to make sure I get this right because I can't keep track of all the bullshit names people come up. Consulting by AR LLC. It seems that there was a casino opening in Las Vegas. Okay. And this group approached Bill Zarian and said, look, we'll broker a deal between your company and this opening resort so that they'll get all your products on their shelves, their kiosks, and their bars and stuff like that. And it was done apparently by some sort of a letter of intent. And then we do this a lot. Here's our big goal, which is not a contract, but when we start refining it down to, closer to terms and what we're going to pay, what we're going to get, things like that. I didn't see all of that. They call it a letter agreement, where Bill Zarian's group agreed that if you broker this deal by July 1st of 2022, then you're going to get the equivalent of 2 million Canadian dollars worth of stock in this group that he owns. Okay, so they brokered a deal. A letter of intent was signed like in April of 22, and the deal was signed July 2nd, 22, one day after the supposed drop dead date. Well, the deal got signed. All the products were on the shelf. They had an after party. Will Berzerian and his attorney and a bunch of people show. Oh, we're happy with you. Everything was so great. And they said, but you were a day late and $1 short, so we ain't paying you. Okay. And they got a little irritated about that. And so Bill Zarian's group sued in Nevada in a civil court for a declaration they don't owe him anything. And this consulting group bumped it up to federal court and said, no, that we got diversity because these are Canadian companies. Okay, we'll use Nevada substantive law, but all the procedures are going to be for federal court. And they agreed on some facts, filed what we call summary judgment motions, and it turns out that Bill Zarian's group got its ass kicked. The court granted summary judgment and said, a 1-day delay, you guys got all the benefits from the contract, so 1 day is not a material breach. Too bad, so sad. Okay. They also found that 2 of Bill Zarian's groups were going to be covered by this this agreement, so that both of them, they're at risk of having to pay damages. They didn't particularly like that. And apparently there was a hearing about a year ago, and they sealed the results of the hearing. But in the hearing, it came out that they had, videos of Bill Zarian partying and saying how great this group was, and we're so happy with the results. And they tried to get that blocked, and the court said, no, we're going to let all that in. And so they lost. And so here I think is the lesson for the bad boys out there thinking that they can go into court and be a badass in front of a federal judge. My response is, don't do it. Because they lost, and rather than going to the appellate court and saying we disagree with what the court found here, they filed what we call a motion for reconsideration with the same judge. Now, you can do that if the court makes a clerical error. Instead of saying 5,000, they say it 5 million or something like that. You can get a clerical error. Or if new facts come to light, something that we didn't know ahead of time, you should take consideration of it now, or the law gets changed, something like that. Otherwise, don't come here and whine and piss and moan that you lost, because we will sanction you if you do. That was the message to this group. Okay, if you come in and cry and whine like a little baby, okay, and you don't bring something new up, and stand back, get your paycheck, get your checkbook out, because you're allowed to be sanctioned for wasting our time. Mm-hmm. Oh, what I have dealt with many, many times in contracts is, as we negotiate these contracts from a letter of intent or a memo of understanding, and we start piecing them together, I put into the final contract what we call an integration clause. All the previous agreements and discussions go away, and they're all contained in this one agreement that we've reached here. That's called the parole evidence rule. You can't go back and bring up, yeah, but he said he'd do this or that before we made the big agreement. Those all are off the table, okay? But everything else you do can be evidence, all right? And that's what happened here. These videos of the party, how they acted after they got their deal. They're saying, oh, we're so happy about this. And then to come in and say, no, we got screwed, didn't get what we want, we're not going to pay them. The court said, nah, don't be playing that game with me. We've got video of you. You guys agreed. We got text. You said, oh, we're so happy with the deal. Oh, but you're 1 day late, so we're going to screw you and not pay you. And the court's not having any of it. So I don't know what to tell you about getting involved with Playboys and all these Instagrammers or whatever they are, and thinking that they're going to be something special and, not be Playboys and poker players with you. But I would say be very careful about doing that. And, if it really is important that something be done by a particular day, spell out why. Because one day, and this resort didn't open up for 3 weeks after they actually signed the deal. So all their products got into there. All the benefit of this agreement got towards Bilzerian's group. And so they tried to screw them. And just be careful, because, you can be a bully on the outside, but when you get into court, just be careful. You might want to bring your checkbook along if you're going to act like a bully in front of a judge. There you go. Throw it back at you guys. What do you think about this?
I got 2 words for you if you're trying to do a cannabis deal. Due diligence. Because anybody that had done any shred of research on Dan Bilzerian would know all about his story. First of all, let's be clear. Apparently fraud runs in his family, because his fortune came from his father being convicted first for securities fraud and then sued by the SEC. His money was never recovered, and then Dan popped onto the scene, somehow able to buy his way into these poker tournaments in Vegas without working his way up the circuit, and that's how he made his money. And then he popped out his amazing cannabis brand, Ignite. And this is another chapter in the Dan Bilzerian story, which I have titled How I Turned Daddy Stolen Money into California's Most Hated Brand of Mids. But
let's make that a hashtag.
No, that guy is a clown.
Voice it with the word mids. Let's put it that way.
He was defrauding his shareholders at Ignite. I don't remember the exact number, but I believe that they found out he was using his shareholder money to pay something like $50,000 or $70,000 a month in rent for his mansion up in the hills, where he was hosting parties, paying Instagram models, flying around in private jets. I think at one point, one of the models, he tried to throw her off of the roof into the pool, and she broke her leg or her back or something like that. Again, due diligence. This is all over the internet. Why would you? I don't know why anybody would get into business with this man, and him going to court and trying to defraud them is a chip off the old block.
Because he
absolutely is, and I second the sentiments. I mean, he was hated so much that his brand failed because he was hated so much. His marketing was a complete slap in the face to women. It was completely outdated methodology in the world of marketing. And sure, plenty of my male colleagues went to his parties, but
his parties were great.
What? I don't see any of you guys following in.
That was the best part of the brand, was his parties.
I'm gonna say this. I gotta say this, man.
Yeah, but listen, everybody who went to those parties knew better. They knew better than what he was doing. What he's doing was
for sure.
determined.
100%. We were still in there for have a good time.
I'm doing due diligence. At those parties. Number one.
Me going to that party was all part of my due diligence process.
That's why you never did a deal with him, huh, Jason?
Exactly. Hey, look, I was doing due diligence because I was actually going to be doing a party at his house for social equity, and he was going to be, after the things that I saw at that party, man, I don't
want to hear any lame ass excuses.
No. I'm not.
No.
Hey, leave me right. Hey. I'm not gonna make any excuses. I'm not going to try to make any excuses, but I will say this. Anything Dan Bilzerian, I thought we were free of hearing Dan Bilzerian ever again. I think it was 20 million.
He died because he stopped talking about him. I thought he was gone.
Yeah.
Somebody somewhere. I don't know.
I think he was. I just think he was ahead of his time because judging.
He wasn't. He was an archaic 1985 marketing campaign. Come on.
I thought it was great.
Hear me out. No, hear me out. I just think he was ahead of his time because of the rise of Andrew Tate and all this stuff. He was the original Andrew Tate. The things that he was.
I don't know. No.
I was gonna say the same thing.
No way. Not even close, bro. Not even close. You can't even put those two in the same category. Hold on. Name one type of a motivational video that Dan Bilzerian put out to be a role model.
Let's hear what Rico's saying.
Seriously, you're losing your damn mind.
All right, I was saying that he was ahead of his time. I wasn't going to say that in a good way. I was saying he was ahead of his time and just not giving a fuck about what anybody thinks about your brand, about how you're doing things. He was incredibly crude. He was very chauvinistic, especially in a time when women were on the rise in cannabis.
It was the whole start of cancel culture.
Yeah, hold on.
It was that, and
Mm-hmm. And he
not
came
only
in
that,
on,
but like
on some straight up, make America great, make America great again shit. He came in on some straight up like, oh fuck y'all, fuck this woke culture, like all that shit. He was ahead of his time, and I'm glad that he was ahead of his time because we don't have to see him thrive today. Get this dude the fuck out. Let's be done with him. Like, why is he still in the news? So that's all I was gonna say. I was being very pro woman on that video. I hope you get my angle. In Jason,
cute.
Fuck Andrew Tate too.
Yeah,
Andrew Tate ain't shit either. All these
they appeal to the same people. Not that they were necessarily had the same type of messaging, but they absolutely appeal to the same like red pill incel culture, like people that wanted to.
That's not true. I'm not buying that one. I'm not buying that one because
guys,
because
there's
no educational value.
Indoctrination at that company. Every single person that worked for that company was brainwashed into thinking that whatever they were doing was actually going to succeed. I can tell you, here we go. Since we're in Hall of Flowers timing right now, the very first Hall of Flowers, the VP of his sales team and one of his, beautiful lady sidekicks walked on up to me and tried to sell me on their brand. And I immediately knew who they were, and I said, I'm not interested. And they continued to try to persuade me to even just listen to their pitch. And I was like, no. And the girl says to me, well, why won't you let us talk to you about the brand? And I said, because of the way that this brand has got you coming up to me in a way that isn't respectful to women. And she continued to pursue and try and convince me that this was like okay and that I should be cool with it. And I just felt really bad for her. Like the indoctrination over there was insane.
They were booth carts. Oh. They were so booth carts. It was the trash Disney pens that they had back then.
Their pre-rolls were garbage.
They spent a lot of money in marketing, but we got to go to a commercial. We're gonna be right back. I'm Jason Beck, and this is Smoky Vanilla. And if you want to feel as good as I look, then you need to get yourself a stretch and smoke with Smoky Vanilla.
That's right, baby. I'm Smoky Vanilla with my background in kinesiology. I'm a sports massage therapist and stretch coach. I focus mostly on athletes who have chronic pain or injury due to their sport, or the legends of the chronic in the game, baby.
Oh, yeah, you know what it is. We just stretched, and now we're gonna smoke, because you know what it is.
That's right. I love intuitively creating a session based on the individual I'm working with. We'll go through a few assessments, look at the past health history, injury, or anything that's still affecting you today, and create a customized session just for you. Let's go.
To women as animals.
And we're back. Make sure you stop whatever you're doing right now and hit that like button, as well as subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. And all of the articles that we cover on today's show you can read on our website at www.high9news.com.
The control tower from Highly Educated has perfected the dab. Utilizing the concept of thin film evaporation, you can waste none of it and taste all of it. The micro texture of the SE pillar increases nucleation at elevated temperatures. And with the tower propelling at 2,600 RPMs, it's certainly the most efficient dab experience to date. The control tower from Highly Educated.
Oh, yeah, and we're back. We're back, Rico. We're back.
With over a decade of regulated cannabis technology data experience under this man's belt, straight out the great purple state of Texas, you know what? This man stays on his grind, and he's working on a product for athletes that's focused on their recovery and their performance as well. And he's here to break us off with a little bit of hump day magic after sunning Jason Beck so effortlessly in that last story. I just can't wait to hear what you got to say today. So what you got for me?
Thank you, Rico, for that intro. So we're gonna get back into some DC politics for cannabis, and we'll talk a little bit more about Andy Harris from Maryland, who was mentioned earlier, but maybe this time in a marginally more positive light. So there's some bipartisan agreement among DC lawmakers who are deeply troubled by the unacceptable marijuana research barriers that are continuing to persist under a new law. Two members of Congress, Earl Blumenauer, who's a Democrat from Oregon, and Andy Harris, who's a Republican from Maryland, on Tuesday demanded answers from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, or HHS, and the Drug Enforcement Administration, the DEA, to demand answers on how cannabis research is being facilitated under the Medical Marijuana and Cannabidiol Research Expansion Act that Biden signed into law in December of 2022. The congressmen, who hold diametrically opposing views on broader cannabis policy issues, said the legislation they sponsored represented a historic breakthrough in addressing the federal government's misguided restriction of research on the impacts of cannabis. At a time when more than half of Americans reside in a place where adult use of cannabis is legal at the state or local level, and there are 4 million registered medical marijuana users, with many more likely to self-medicate, it's essential that we are able to fully study the impacts of cannabis use, they said. The American public deserves to know the effect that modern marijuana has on the human body. The lawmaker said that more than 150 research applications for cannabis studies are pending decision by the FDA under HHS, while many more researchers are excluded due to the DEA's onerous licensing requirements that have not yet adequately been updated. What's more, HHS is more than 3 months past the deadline to submit a report to Congress that outlines federal marijuana research barriers. Continued research barriers signal ineffective implementation of the Medical Marijuana and Cannabidiol Research Expansion Act, the congressman said, listing a series of questions they want the HHS and DEA to answer. And there's a list of these questions you can find in the article that'll be on the website. The partnership of Blumenauer and Harris on this letter and the original bill is maybe part of the most notable part of the story, considering that Blumenauer is a founding member of the Congressional Cannabis Caucus and has been a proponent of changing, descheduling, rescheduling, trying to get banking passed. He's been a strong proponent of cannabis for many decades, while Harris, on the other hand, has been very opposed to cannabis legalization, adult use, or medical. He's a staunch prohibitionist, and he even signed a letter to HHS encouraging them not to reschedule cannabis as a part of this ongoing review that was ordered by the Biden administration. Where was the exact quote here? Harris, on the other hand, has pushed the DEA to keep cannabis in Schedule 1, criticizing what he described as HHS's flawed and misguided conclusion that marijuana holds certain medical value. And that's basically it. We can get into some discussion about it. On that last point, I just want to point out how ironic and idiotic his position and the position of all prohibitionists are. That on one hand, he's saying that the review and the conclusion of the review that cannabis has some medical value is wrong. And on the other hand, he's apparently very pro medical marijuana research. So, which is it, Representative Harris? Please tell us. And let's hear what everyone else has to say on this. But some more bullshit coming out of the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
They got to do more research on the research.
Exactly. I mean, we've been having antiquated studies for decades here in the country, but we need more and more research.
The research is great if it says what they want it to say. See, that's the problem we faced from the LaGuardia report to the Schaefer report in like 71 or 72. And even Dr. Taskin from UCL, who dared to say that, smoking pot's safer than breathing the air in LA. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, they pulled all your research and now you're persona non grata. It's a culture inside the DEA that, I don't know how you break that. The last time we had a chance to do this, Peter Bourne was the drug czar in the Carter administration. He was recommending just knock all this nonsense off. We don't believe what they're saying about cannabis. He got caught up in a little coke snorting and illegal prescribing problem, and next thing you know, he's gone, and we haven't had a chance since then. Harry McCafferty was the guy that first went after me, that son of a bitch. He was a general in the army, and he was the drug czar. He was a fucking cop. That's how they approach this. They bring in cops to talk about drugs, and they don't know shit about it.
Well, the NIH, correct me if I'm wrong, the NIH, as of right now, is only supposed to be approving studies that are looking into the negative effects of cannabis. And that's a huge part of the problem. And, you know, my alma mater, University of Arizona, you see it behind me, we had Dr. Sue Sisley, who for years and years and years was applying for federal approval to do research on the use of cannabis to treat PTSD in military veterans. And finally, she got the approval that she needed, and the asshats that were at the time the Board of Regents at the University of Arizona, thankfully they're all gone now, made the decision to fire her because they felt she was too outspoken on the issue, which is just crazy to me. But thankfully, the U of A has new administration. They're a lot more open to cannabis at this time, but that was really hard to watch.
Well, they need to apologize. The new administration needs to apologize to Dr. Sue. I believe that should be a formal and public apology because her position was correct. But let me just say this. I'll simplify this really down to like a sentence. How many people do you know in any job will volunteer for a pay cut? None, right? Mm-hmm. And that's basically what you're asking the DEA to do. You're asking the DEA to sign on to marijuana being not illegal, pulled off of their books, and that is their bread and butter. They're not going to do that. It's completely contradictory to everything, all human nature.
But it doesn't make sense because think about it. If we decriminalize this plant, reschedule it, whatever you want, whatever vocabulary you want to put in there, and people were able to run studies on it, that there was, no boundaries between states, that anybody could sell this plant, anybody could grow this plant, anybody ages, let's say at 18 and up really should be able to buy this plant. And pharmacists should know about it, doctors would know about it, all of these things. There would be tax revenue coming from not just the cannabis industry anymore, but globally. And so I venture to say that the small number of entrepreneurs, these disruptive entrepreneurs that we all are, and the tax money we're sending them now on 280E would significantly multiply because they would be able to have these other businesses all over the place.
You speak of a world, correct. Mandy, a world full of descheduling.
Let me talk on that real quick. She's 100% correct. However, what you have to understand is the DEA is an entity within themselves. You're talking about the broader federal government, and you're absolutely right. More tax revenue would come into the coffers of the federal government, but the DEA itself would become null and void. And those are the people that are holding on to the death deal. Hold on real quick. What happens is you're telling the DEA, hey, we're going to take away cannabis out of your enforcement portfolio, right? You don't get to go to these national parks. You don't get to go on these huge raids. You don't get to go celebrate all these big drug busts that you do that are really easy for you to do. Okay, what happens initially is your budget then from the DOJ gets to shrink now. And that DEA cannot have their budget shrink, because if their budget starts going the other way, eventually what happens is they dry up and die. Mm-hmm. And the DEA knows that scenario.
We can only hope.
Cannabis with pharmacology and start chasing down all of that bullshit.
No, that's
Luke,
not going to work.
To your point, though, here's the real problem, though, right? What you're saying is accurate, which brings up a whole nother point. If they are set to be financially affected by decriminalization or rescheduling, then there is a conflict of interest and they should be fully removed from the decision-making process. They should not be allowed to even have an opinion on it because they stand to lose from it.
Absolutely.
Well, that's the junkyard dog scenario I talk about. I want the cops there. We're talking about security. When I'm making policy decisions, leave the junkyard dog chained up behind the fence, okay? Because there's a bureaucracy here. Bureaucracies live to survive, to have their money refunded and keep the job of the head bureaucrats. If you allow them to be in the middle of this decision, and they're never going to vote themselves out of business, you've got to have the Congress come in and say, sit down, shut up, guys, take some notes. We're telling the cops how we're going to do this. Because fentanyl is still a problem. I mean, they've got to understand there's hard drug problems out there. Weed's an easy drug problem. You can smell it. Dogs can smell it. You bust people. You got to haul a bunch of shit. I mean, it's a different problem than fentanyl. Fentanyl's killing people. They need to be concentrating on that a little bit more and less on this. But this is low-hanging fruit. Not going to give it
it's
up.
no different than the same reason you'll never see Congress pass legislation that reforms how campaign finance laws work, because they're the biggest benefactors of it, right? So there's no way around that without removing that person or that entity from the decision-making process.
Or the Supreme Court is going to approve ethics violations, throw one of them out of office. They're never going to do that either.
Exactly.
And this is done, it's done in multiple facets too. This is also how the clemency process is done. The clemency process, who sits at the table and makes the main decision, are career prosecutors at the DOJ. It's completely contradictory to how they think their thought process. And to tell the career prosecutors, hey, we need you to review these petitions and let people out of prison, it doesn't compute with how they're set up. So you have these situations in the government a lot where you have people sitting at the table of the decision makers who have a severe conflict of interest to be at that table. We have to recognize that and say, hey, look, maybe we'll listen to your input, but you don't have the veto power on this anymore. You don't get to put the stamp off of this so that no one else gets to read it anymore. That's not cool. We can take your input in, but you no longer have the power to wipe it off the table.
Hell yeah.
Oh, man. And on that, we are going to go to a commercial. We are going to be...
Get ready for the 20-year anniversary celebration of the Emerald Cup. The Emerald Cup will be held at the Henry J. Kaiser Center for the Arts in downtown Oakland, May 4th and 5th. Get your tickets now for best pricing. Cannabis categories include flower, pre-rolls, solventless concentrates, solvent concentrates, cartridges, edibles, topicals, tinctures, and alternative cannabinoids. So enter early for your chance to be a winner at the 20-year anniversary Emerald Cup competition.
Oh, yes, and we're back, and we're going to roll right on into Miss Mandy Tingler. She's a mom, a cannabis executive, and an Edibles Cup an Emerald Cup judge for the edibles category. On top of that, she's also hosting the Women's Cannabis Awards coming up later this month, where some lucky ladies are going to get to have the chance to put their brand into some real retailer's hands. That's right. It is none other than Miss Mandy Tingler.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday to you. We have spent a lot of time on this show talking about alternative cannabinoids, synthesized cannabinoids, and everything in between. And I have another story about that. This one is actually a case study, because you know how I love my case studies. So, a new study shows a molecular lookalike of the intoxicating compound found in marijuana has become popular amongst teens in the United States, especially in areas where marijuana use is still illegal. As more than 11% of high school seniors who took part in a national survey last spring said that they used Delta-8 THC, a psychoactive compound typically derived from hemp, in the last year. That figure surprised researchers at USC and the University of Michigan, who published their findings this week in the Journal of American Medical Association. Products containing Delta-8 have really only been on the market since roughly 2018, according to study leader Alyssa Harlow. She is a USC epidemiologist and faculty member of the school's Institute for Addiction Science. Gummies, vapes, and other products containing Delta-8 are available online and in gas stations and convenience stores. They are often marketed as federally legal substitute for marijuana, and often without solid measures for age verification. She says, we don't know enough about these drugs, but we see that they already are extremely accessible to teens. Delta-8 looks much like Delta-9 THC. We've talked about this a lot, but just as a reminder, it's a more common molecule in cannabis that makes you feel high, in case you've forgotten, but has a slightly different structure with a double bond located between the different set of carbon atoms. Both are found naturally in cannabis, but Delta-8 is much less abundant. In a 2021 survey, Delta-8 users reported to have less intense effects than Delta-9 on average, but the Food and Drug Administration has warned consumers that it has not evaluated the safety of these Delta-8 products. Chemicals used to convert cannabinoids found in hemp into Delta-8 may include harmful contaminants, which people are being cautioned about. It says products containing Delta-8 exploded in popularity in 2018 after the passage of the agricultural bill that eased federal restrictions on hemp. You guys remember me talking about a few minutes ago. The Agricultural Improvement Act allowed for the broader production of hemp, which is cannabinoids that has only a very small amount of Delta-9 THC. And it opened the door for people to extract these chemical compounds from hemp, like CBD, and convert them into other substances that can produce intoxicating effects. This is coming, by the way, that quote was coming from the author of the study. It says the result was that Delta-8 THC now seems to be legal because it's not specifically banned, she says. However, another federal law restricts a broader category of compounds that includes Delta-8. And she said it's making things very, very confusing for consumers. The new findings of teen use on Delta-8 come from the annual Monitoring of the Future survey. It's an NIDA-funded project that asks U.S. adolescents about drug and alcohol use. Many of these students, up to more than a third, said that they had tried Delta-8 within a 10-month time period. It says it's unclear if Delta-8 affects teens differently than other forms of THC. But even if it's the same as other forms, we are not in favor of 13 to 15-year-olds using cannabis. I'm not sure why she just picked those age groups, but she says for teens, we are concerned about its impact on learning and memory and day-to-day function, Compton said. There is also concerns about it being associated with development of psychiatric illness, particularly psychotic disorders in those that are using cannabis early in life. Arlo and her colleagues also found that in states where marijuana use is illegal for adults, 14% of high school seniors said they had used Delta-8 in the last year. However, in states where marijuana was legal for adults, only 8% of high school seniors said they used Delta-8 in the previous year. There was no clear difference based on state policies when it came to marijuana use, with more than 30% of seniors overall saying that they had used the drug in the last year. Among teens who reported using Delta-8, nearly 91% said that they had used marijuana as well. Kids just want to get high. They go on to say that the alarm bells go off and that these products are being marketed with claims of being completely legal substitute for marijuana, and they seem to be proliferating in areas where there's really no regulation present. We don't necessarily know what's in the product that people are using, and the customer doesn't know either, Cooper says. People are not making sure that these products have quality control or that there's accurate labeling. That in itself should make people who are thinking about experimenting pause. Now, you guys, there is a lot of information in the rest of this article, but the ultimate thing that we're looking at here is states or cities even, like down to the municipality level. They're finding that when there is regulation around cannabis, that this alternative cannabinoid that we don't know a lot about is less prevalent. I'm super interested to see what you think about it. This is Mandy for High at 9 News.
Man, oh man. Now, so my first thought is, what's the margin of error in this study? Because I think 11% is extremely low. I think that's at least like 35%.
Self-reported, so you can't really depend on it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think there's a lot of liars that were self-reporting as well.
Of course.
I mean, I think the funniest part of the story is the USC research team trying to figure out why kids are smoking Delta-8.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. So let's drill down on that real quick. Is this whole Delta-8 thing, really this whole everything, right, is a byproduct of prohibition. Okay, people wouldn't be having to go through all these hoops and jump through Delta-8s and Delta-7s and Delta-10s and all this craziness if you didn't have prohibition and people going to prison and people getting dirty drug tests and going and losing their jobs and all this madness, right? So what I like how like the government points the finger back at the industry like, oh, look at you scoundrels trying to like come up with these ways to trick people and not do lab tests and get weed into the hands of kids. This is a byproduct of your creation. This is a byproduct of prohibition. If you didn't have prohibition, you wouldn't have all this other dumb stuff. We don't have an illegal corn market. We don't have an illegal asparagus market, right? Because those are regulated commodities that everybody can access.
Well, also too, those have scaled and those prices bottom out to where it's not cost effective for people to produce it themselves at mass scales, and you know what I mean.
I mean, alcohol is a good example. Like, yeah, sure, there might be like a handful of people in the hills of Kentucky that are producing illegal moonshine, but for the large part, there's not a prolific illicit liquor market that exists.
Right.
It just doesn't, and I think that's kind of the point here. And to Luke's point, yes, the finger gets pointed back at us as a cannabis industry, but the truth is we want the opposite. We want the federal government to deschedule cannabis. We want safe banking. We want 280E to end. And then none of this, then all these smoke shops, like just look at the amount of demand that exists for Delta-8 THC, probably in Los Angeles versus in Austin, Texas. And tell me what's the difference between those two markets.
Very good point. Very good point, Sol.
It continues to bug me that they bring up these psychotic disorders because I've gone toe to toe with psychiatrists over this. My father-in-law was one, and he was a psychiatrist of the National Health Service, and they came up with a statistical manual back in the early 1950s, and they categorized the percentage of people who have psychotic disorders. Okay? Now, that's the same number we have today, and in between, a hell of a lot more people smoke pot. I mean, exponentially more, and there's no change in the psychotic disorders. So this is my point with these psychiatrists. Like, listen, the empirical evidence be what it is. The factual evidence, none of this smoking weed increased psychotic disorders. Schizophrenia is not worse. It's not. Stop hooking it. Go back and read the Indian hemp report from the 1890s. They went to insane asylums and found the same thing. They called them hash eaters. Okay, but they were out in the world too, not eating hash. Psychotic disorders are part of human nature, and weed does not make it worse. So it's like, oh, the children, oh, it'll cause psychotic disorders. Bullshit.
There's a higher rate of self-reporting, so it seems that there's a higher correlation. But what's the first rule of empirical and research studies? Correlation does not imply causation. Yeah. Right. Just because more people are self-reporting as consuming cannabis does not mean that it's causing a psychotic disorder.
The Latin term is post hoc ergo propter hoc. Just because one thing follows the other doesn't mean it causes it. The sun comes up every morning. It doesn't cause your toenail fungus, so stop it.
Interesting, Dale. Interesting.
It's some tough acting to acting.
Yes.
Those Ozempic will cause you to lose weight until you can't afford the goal.
Yeah. You ready, Rico?
All right.
Let's roll the
closing us out today.
Yep.
Yeah, let's close us out today is the High at 9 News' very own in-house neighborhood outlaw expert. He's a dope dad, author, activist, entrepreneur, OG, trailblazer, warrior for justice, and living proof that the real ones very well are still alive in this game. My man, Luke Scarmasso. What you got for today?
Thank you, Rico. I appreciate that. We out here in beautiful Ventura, California, representing Profit Brands over here at the Hall of Flowers. This is my first Hall of Flowers in the southern part of the state. I went to Hall of Flowers last year up in Santa Rosa with Mandy and I. We had a good time up there, met a bunch of awesome people. That was my really first experience with it. So this is going to be my second one. So we down here having fun. What isn't so fun is the story that I have to cover because, as you know, I am your neighborhood High at 9 outlaw correspondent, and I have to cover the news of people being outlawed. I guess we'll keep it that simple. Mm-hmm. And this one goes all the way across the country to the beautiful, beautiful nation capital of Washington, D.C. Stay on the mall. Don't go off the mall because it gets pretty crazy if you get off the mall because, well, quite frankly, Washington, D.C. is in disarray right now. U.S. VP Harris gathers Fat Joe and people pardoned for marijuana convictions to discuss reforms. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris on Friday plans to gather rapper Fat Joe and several people pardoned by the Biden administration for marijuana-related convictions for a White House public discussion about criminal justice reform. The meeting comes as Harris, a Democrat, I guess we had to clarify that, is tasked with convincing people of color and young voters to give President Joe Biden and her a second chance and a 4-year term amid fears that voters are dissatisfied with a sluggish policy reforms that may sit out in November's election. All right, let me pause right there for really quick 1 second. Fat Joe, listen, I always think that celebrities and artists should go to the White House and try to influence the White House on issues that are important to our community. So big up to Fat Joe, I don't care who's in the administration. I don't care who the artist is. If you're taking your time to go out and do that, my hat goes off to you. The whole thing about this, having a gathering of people, several people pardoned by the Biden administration for marijuana-related convictions. It's 3 people that they have found. They said 6,000 were going to be pardoned by this proclamation. Well, they got 3 to show up. And one of the guys supposedly is an activist. I haven't heard of him. That doesn't mean he's not an activist. I'm just saying I haven't heard of him in the industry or in the activist circle. He was arrested for smoking. He was arrested for smoking in front of the White House at like a protest or something like that. So kind of like a self-inflicted thing that really, I guess the officer really didn't even have to arrest him for, right? He could just, told him put it out and get out of here or whatever it is. But, because he was protesting, they probably wanted to make an example and arrest a couple people, and they had him for weed. And now he's one of the people trumpeted by the Biden administration as being helped out with these pardons. Let me add another part to these pardons, because yesterday there was an article covered by the High at 9 News, and we talked about the governors that are following suit, Massachusetts governor in particularly, that is following suit and saying, oh, I'm also going to issue pardons for simple possession. So because people are being barred from housing and people are being barred from their jobs and not being able to fill out employment and all these things. And it's the same echo that came from the White House. Let me be 100% clear on this to all of the governors, as well as maybe perhaps some people in the White House, whoever is handling this situation maybe isn't aware of this. No job application asks me if I've ever been convicted of a misdemeanor. They simply don't. They only ask if I've been convicted of a felony. You pardoning my misdemeanor simple possession doesn't do anything for my employment. It doesn't do anything for my housing. There's no collateral consequences of my misdemeanor like there are for felony convictions. So this whole symbolic thing and having people meet at the White House, listen, have people meet at the White House that are going to affect real policy change, that can actually talk to you about some things that could really move the needle and maybe get the voters that you guys want, because we're open to have these discussions. But this whole theater and song and dance, everybody sees through this. This is not real. This is pretend. So let's stop pretending, because there's people in prison that are doing real time and they're not pretending, and their families aren't pretending either when they got to go to that visiting room every weekend. So I'll continue. The United States jails more people than any other country, with some 1 in 5 of the 1.9 million people that are behind bars are for drug-related offenses. Black and Latino people are disproportionately incarcerated, while drug law reform has the broadest support among young voters. Each constituency favors Democrats. Biden, who has sometimes disappointed activists with conservative views about narcotic use, has nonetheless proposed easing the treatment of the psychoactive plant under federal law, and has pardoned thousands of convictions for mere possession of the drug. He mentioned both positions during the State of the Union last week. I will say this. I will say it is historic for a president to mention cannabis in the State of the Union. Let's just pause and say that. I'll give credit where credit's due. No president has ever done that. So I do think that's actually a positive step. So I applaud that. I applaud whoever wrote the speech. I applaud Biden for saying it, and Harris for standing up and applauding when it was talked about. Some of the activists favor full legalization of the drug, and they have faulted the administration for dismissing some of the employees for past drug use. I thought that was weird too, but whatever. You can have whoever you want work for you. Biden said racial equity would be one of his administration's top priorities when he was elected in the aftermath of the widespread street protests over the 2020 murder of George Floyd, who was black by Minneapolis police officers. He has backed a menu of reforms, but distanced himself from efforts to sharply cut criminal penalties. Voter concerns about crime often figure into the U.S. campaigns during U.S. campaign season attack ads. I don't really think there's a whole lot that can be attacked on cannabis legalization. I just don't. I think both sides of the aisle agree. I think most of your voters agree. It's something that's polling like in the high 60s. Nothing is polling in the high 60s and isn't backed by both aisles is not being passed. Like, come on, it's a no-brainer. Joining Harris's conversation on Friday is rapper Fat Joe, a 5-time Grammy nominee and proponent of criminal justice reform. A White House official said on Wednesday, the Department of Health and Human Services last year recommended that cannabis be reclassified from its current treatment as a Schedule I drug alongside heroin as having no accepted medical use and a high potential for abuse. They recommended it be treated like testosterone and codeine cough syrup as a Schedule III drug with moderate potential for causing addiction. The decision, which now rests with the Department of Justice Drug Enforcement Agency, which we touched on earlier, would improve the tax treatment for marijuana businesses and allow more medical research. So, again, like we have this situation here where we have a lot of theater being put on in front of us as if progress is being made. Now, I will stop and note and give credit where progress does get made. Absolutely, because we want that progress. I will work with anybody to make that progress happen. I don't care if we disagree on 50 other subjects. If we can agree on that one subject, I will work with you on that. But please do not insult our intelligence as people, as your constituents, and as an industry by trumpeting these things as true progress and true progressive cannabis policy when it's really not. It's really not. And if you want the people that can affect that policy, if you want people to come to the White House that can have an influence on that policy and speak from a position of experience, then tap in with the people that really can. Tap in with Rico Lamitte. Tap in with Soham and Mandy Tingler, who's the president of the Women's Canada Awards. And these stakeholders can actually give you real input. This is Luke Scarmazzo for the High at 9 News. Wednesday, hump day, over here in Ventura, California, Hall of Flowers. Kicking it back to my fellow correspondents. Man, tell me what you guys think about this.
It's all lipstick on the pig. Mm-hmm. They really don't, it's like, oh, it looks pretty. No, it's not. We can hear it oinking. Mm-hmm. Problem doesn't go away. And they're not calling at me and you, okay? Because I got a conspiracy charge for manufacturing and distributing. So I don't get the simple possession. Okay? I don't think I'm ever going to get released from these idiots. But, you and I could have something meaningful to say. Mandy or anybody on this call could bring in their perspectives too. But they don't want to hear it. This is politics. They want to make it look pretty like we're doing something when in actuality, you ain't doing shit. And the people who know you ain't doing shit, you're just pissing us off.
It's during an election cycle too. So it's like, it's not even disguised at all, right? So what I would say is, look, Vice President Harris, I implore you to approach cannabis reform with the same gusto that you enforced the 3-strike policy when you were the Attorney General of California and when you enforced all those laws as the district attorney in San Francisco. That was not posturing when you were a public official there compared to what you're doing right now. So let's see some more action. You had no problem taking action when you were an Attorney General, so do something stronger, please.
Yeah, she's not going to do anything.
She's gonna.
This to me is just such lip service. Like this is nothing more than just basically gaslighting the cannabis community. Like, hey, we're about to do some stuff, and we're gonna basically do nothing, but we're gonna make it pretty. And Fat Joe's gonna join us. So you know what I mean? We're gonna have edibles.
This goes back to Obama. He promised us the moon.
Yep.
Vote for him. I mean,
exactly.
I was out there, something for him. We got Dick. We finally got the Cole and Ogden memos, eventually down the line.
Cole and Ogden memos didn't do a damn thing.
No. But we've been sold, vote for us and we'll do it. No, you're not doing shit for us. Stop it. Stop putting lipstick on the pig and, go out and kill the pig and let's eat it. Let's get rid of this shit.
Oh, barbecue.
Well, because my experience has forced me to remain hopeful against all odds, I will still hold out hope that the Biden and Harris administration will still come around to the right way of looking at this and do what's right in this situation. Because I think if they do that, I can see a huge upside for their ticket. And I mean, it's such a low hanging fruit. It's sitting right in front of your campaign. If you don't grab it, it's a huge miss.
They're going to do it in October if they do it. They'll do it October 20th.
You know what? I'm with you, Luke. I do hold out hope that they would do the right thing. But at the same time, the one thing that I'm not going to hold is my breath, because we would all be dead if that was the case.
They got our names, Luke. They knew who we are. We could have our pardons tomorrow.
Exactly.
We're not going to do stuff.
Well, if they can't do anything, if you're not going to pardon me, at least show up to the Women's Canada Awards on March 30th in LA, and we'll have a drink and talk about it.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that'll be a great place
we
to
could
show
hear
up.
one of those classic Kamala Harris laughs after a couple edibles.
Oh, the cackle. Gaggle.
Sweet Dr. Willie Brown, huh?
Dude, if she showed up, I'd let her present an award.
She can present my awards. I'll step out and she can present the Social Justice Award.
Yeah. Good luck for that. That would be cute.
Bring Fat Joe, VP. Bring him down. Let's go.
VP Harris, we are officially extending an invitation to you to present the Social Justice Award at the Women's Canada Awards in Los Angeles on March 30th. There it is.
There you go. Agger.
On that note, thank you all for joining us for yet another episode of High at 9 News. You can catch us live weekdays, 9 a.m. Pacific, high noon on the East Coast. Big shout out to the super fans showing love, getting their comments posted live on the big screen. Our live audience and online supporters catching us across all media platforms, tuning in each day to the headlines of chaos, also known as the development cannabis industry. To our vetted correspondent team, tuning in from all over, bringing us much needed variety of perspective and your respected expertise and opinions to the table. To all the sponsors keeping the lights on, our production team, Cloud Media Partners keeping the AV struggles to a minimum when they're here, and of course, big shout out to Jason today, actually getting our pictures on the screen.
Yep. See, I'm learning, bro. I'm getting better.
Good job, Jay. Good job, brother.
Yeah, Deputy Beck. As always, Cannabis Sativa L, the reason we show up to read these headlines every single day. Thank you, too. It has been Wednesday, March 13th, 2024. Show's over. You've all been blessed with top industry headlines. Hope it's enough for you to put in your pipe and smoke at least until tomorrow. We'll get right back to Mandy, because it's still
Mandy just dropped. Mandy just dropped. You can't give it to the women. No, you got to pick another.
You know, it's her prerogative. She wanted to do this. That was a
Bounced on you, dude.
Yeah. Luke brought the fire today, man. Luke, what you got for us, man? You gonna take us out?
Man, it's a beautiful day. Listen, go out, make love, not war. And I'm going to say this. Show up to the Women's Canada Awards on some real talk. We're going to have some fun down there on March 30th. It's going to be in LA. If you haven't bought your tickets, go ahead and get your tickets. We're going to be over at Hall of Flowers. If you see us, tap in 2 p.m. today. We're doing a high-price book signing. So, man, come over, pull up on us. Tell me you love the book. Tell me you hate the book. Tell me you love Prophet. Tell me you hate Prophet. Tell me that Jason looks like a superstar, or tell me Jason looks like a dimming star. I don't care. I just come and talk to me is my thing. And it's good to see you guys, man. All love. Hall of Flowers, Rico Lemite, Sohum, Dale Schaefer, Jason Beck, High at 9 News. We'll sign off. We'll see you tomorrow.
Oh, yes. You all have an amazing day today, you guys.